The handprint on my bedroom window wasn't there when I went to sleep. I know that because I checked. I always check now. Every lock, every window, every shadow that sits too long in a corner. I check because of what happened in October. I check because something came home with us that night and I don't think it ever left. I'm going to tell you everything. Not because I want to. Because I have to. Because Marcus won't talk about it. Because Jess can't. And because the thing that happened to Danny, what Danny became, I need someone else to know in case it happens to me too. I need you to understand we were normal. That's the part no one ever believes. It started on a Friday, October 17th. I remember the date because it was Danny's half-birthday, which was this stupid thing he'd celebrated since he was a kid. His actual birthday was in April, but every October he'd insist on some kind of gathering. Nothing fancy, just the four of us at someone's house, a few beers, bad movies, the usual. That year it was at Marcus's place. Marcus lived alone in this narrow two-story row house in Kensington, the kind of place that was built in the 1920s and never fully updated. The floors creaked in every room. The radiators clanked like someone was trapped inside them. The basement had a dirt floor and a single bare bulb that swung if you walked too hard upstairs. It was the kind of house that always felt like it was listening. But we were used to it. We'd been hanging out there since Marcus moved in 2 years prior. It was our spot. Friday nights, we'd pile onto his mismatched furniture, order too much food, and talk until 2 in the morning about nothing important. It was comfortable. Safe even. That night, the four of us, me, Marcus, Danny, and Jess were sitting in the living room. Marcus had put on some low-budget horror movie none of us were really watching. Jess was curled up in the armchair scrolling through her phone. Danny was on the floor leaning against the couch, picking at a slice of cold pizza. I was on the couch behind him, half asleep, listening to the rain hit the windows. It was Danny who brought it up. "I found something in my grandmother's attic," he said, not looking up from his pizza. Nobody responded at first. Danny was always finding things. He was the kind of person who went to estate sales and thrift stores and came back with boxes of stuff nobody wanted. Old cameras, broken clocks, foreign coins. He had a whole shelf in his apartment dedicated to what he called artifacts, which were really just other people's junk that he'd assigned some imagined history to. "What did you find?" Jess asked, not looking up from her phone. Danny reached into his backpack, I hadn't even noticed he'd brought it, and pulled out a flat wooden board wrapped in a pillowcase. He set it on the coffee table and unwrapped it slowly, almost reverently, and I remember thinking he was being dramatic the way Danny always was. It was a Ouija board. But not the kind you buy at a toy store. This one was old. The wood was dark, almost black in places, and the letters were burned into the surface, not printed. The planchette was a separate piece, heavier than it should have been, made of the same dark wood with a small circle of clouded glass in the center. The edges of the board were carved with symbols I didn't recognize, not pentagrams or anything obvious like that. They looked like letters from an alphabet I'd never seen. Angular. That's like someone had carved them in a hurry or in a fever. "It was in a trunk," Danny said, "under a bunch of my grandmother's church stuff, which is weird. She was super Catholic. Like rosary on the nightstand Catholic. I don't know why she'd have this." "Maybe she confiscated it," Marcus said. He was standing in the doorway to the kitchen, holding a beer. "My mom used to take stuff like that away from my cousins." "Maybe," Danny said. But the way he was looking at the board, running his fingers along the carved edges, tilting it to catch the light, I could tell he'd already made up his mind about what he wanted to do with it. "No," Jess said flatly. "I didn't even ask anything yet. You were about to." "And no." Danny grinned. "Come on. It's my half-birthday. That's not a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing. And on my half-birthday I get to pick the activity. That's the rule. There's no rule. There's an unspoken rule. And I'm invoking it. I should have sided with Jess. I want to be clear about that. Something about the board made me uneasy from the moment I saw it. Not in a dramatic, hair-standing-on-end way. More like a low hum of wrongness, the same feeling you get when you walk into a room and know that someone was just arguing in it. The air felt different, charged. But I didn't say anything. I just shrugged when Danny looked at me, and that shrug was enough. Marcus didn't need convincing. He thought the whole thing was funny. He turned off the movie, turned off most of the lights, for atmosphere, he said, and lit a few candles he found in a kitchen drawer. Jess sighed, put her phone down, and moved to the floor with the rest of us. The four of us sat around the coffee table with the board between us. Rain drummed against the windows. The candles threw long shadows up the walls. Danny placed the planchette in the center of the board and told us all to put 2 fingers on it. "Lightly," he said. "Don't push." "I know how it works," Marcus said. Do you? Everyone knows how it works. You ask a question, the ideomotor effect makes your muscles twitch and the pointer moves. It's psychology, not ghosts. Danny smiled at that, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then you've got nothing to worry about. We put our fingers on the planchette. It was cold. Not room temperature cold, actually cold like it had been sitting in a refrigerator. I noticed Jess flinch when she touched it, but she didn't pull away. Danny spoke first. Is anyone here with us? Silence. The rain. The faint hiss of the candle flames. Nothing happened for maybe 30 seconds. I was about to make a joke about it when the planchette moved. It was subtle. A slow, almost lazy drift toward the word yes in the upper left corner of the board. It didn't feel like any of us were pushing it. It felt like it was sliding on its own, like the table had tilted slightly and it was just following gravity. Except the table was level. I'd watched Marcus set his beer on it earlier without it sliding. Okay, who's pushing it? Jess said. Nobody's pushing it, Danny said. His voice had changed. Quieter. More focused. Someone is definitely pushing it. Jess. Nobody is pushing it. Marcus was grinning. Ask it something else. Danny took a breath. What's your name? The planchette began to move again. Faster this time. It slid to the letter E. Then L. Then I. Eli. Eli, Danny said. Is your name Eli? The planchette drifted back to yes. When did you die? This time the planchette moved to the numbers along the bottom of the board. 1-8-8-7. 1887, Marcus said, leaning forward. Alright, that's actually kind of cool. It's the ideomotor effect, Jess said, but her voice was thin. Danny ignored both of them. Eli, are you in this room with us right now? Yes. Where? The planchette didn't move to any letter or number. Instead, it slid in a slow, deliberate circle around the center of the board. Around and around and around like it was stirring something. It went on long enough that I started to feel dizzy watching it. Then it stopped. It stopped pointing directly at Danny. Not at his fingers. At his chest. I felt the temperature in the room drop. Not gradually, instantly, like someone had opened a door to the outside. My breath didn't fog, but it felt like it should have. Jess pulled her hands off the planchette. I'm done, she said. Wait, Danny started. I said I'm done. Danny looked at me. His eyes were bright in the candlelight, and for a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something in them that wasn't Danny. Not a color change or anything that obvious. More like a depth. Like looking into a window and realizing the room behind it is much larger than the building should allow. Then he blinked and it was gone. Fine, he said. We'll stop. He pulled his fingers off the planchette. Marcus did the same. Danny wrapped the board back up in the pillowcase and shoved it into his backpack. And that was it. Or it should have been. We stayed another hour. The mood had shifted, but we pretended it hadn't. Marcus put a comedy on, something with a laugh track that felt almost aggressive in the silence that kept creeping back. Jess ordered more food, but when it arrived, nobody was really hungry. The pizza sat in the box getting cold, and I watched the grease congeal on the surface and thought, absurdly, that it looked like something congealing over water. Sealing something underneath. Danny barely spoke for the rest of the night. He sat in the same spot on the floor, leaning against the couch, but his posture had changed. Before the board, he'd been loose, comfortable, one arm draped over his knee in that effortlessly casual way he had. Now he was rigid. His shoulders were drawn up slightly, and his hands were flat on the floor beside him, fingers spread, like he was bracing himself against something only he could feel. Every few minutes, his head would turn, slowly, mechanically, toward the darkened hallway that led to Marcus's basement door. He'd stare at it for a few seconds, then turn back to the TV. He did this 4 times. I counted. Nobody mentioned the board. Nobody mentioned the cold, which had mostly receded but left a residual chill that clung to the skin like damp cloth. Nobody mentioned the fact that the candles Marcus had lit during the session had gone out at some point, not blown out, not guttered. The wicks were intact, untouched. The wax hadn't melted. It was as if the flames had simply decided to stop. By midnight, we were all heading home. Danny gave me a ride because we lived in the same direction. The rain had stopped, and the streets were empty and shining under the streetlights, each one casting a perfect circle of yellow on the wet asphalt. We didn't talk much. The radio was on low, some late-night talk show, 2 voices murmuring about something political that neither of us cared about. I was looking out the window, watching the row houses scroll past, when I noticed Danny's reflection in the windshield. It was faint, transparent, overlaid on the passing streetscape. And I could have sworn that his reflection was looking at me. not forward at the road. At me. The real Danny was staring straight ahead, both hands on the wheel, jaw set. But the Danny in the glass had his head turned, and his expression was one I'd never seen on his face before. Curious, hungry, amused. I blinked and looked directly at Danny. He was watching the road. Normal. Fine. I looked back at the windshield. The reflection was facing forward. I told myself it was a trick of the light. Passing headlights, street lamps, the way glass warps images at certain angles. I told myself this and I almost believed it. When Danny dropped me off, I leaned down to look at him through the passenger window. "You good?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah. Why?" "I don't know. You seem kind of out of it." He smiled. It was a normal smile. A Danny smile. "I'm fine, man. Go to bed." I watched him drive away. His taillights disappeared around the corner, two red eyes swallowed by the dark. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment longer than necessary, and I realized I was listening. For what, I didn't know. The street was silent except for the distant hush of traffic on Aramingo Avenue and the irregular drip of water from the gutters. But underneath those sounds, or maybe between them in the gaps, I thought I heard something else. A low, sustained tone, almost below the threshold of hearing. Not a hum. Not mechanical. More like the sound a large, empty space makes when something moves through it. The sound of displacement. Of air being pushed aside by something massive and slow. Then it was gone and the street was just a street again. I went inside. I brushed my teeth. I checked the locks and the windows, all of them, something I wouldn't normally do, but that night it felt necessary, felt urgent in a way I couldn't articulate. I got into bed. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the building settle around me, the old pipes ticking, the floorboards adjusting to the cold. Normal sounds. The vocabulary of an old apartment at night. I fell asleep eventually. I don't remember the transition. One moment I was staring at the ceiling and the next I was somewhere else, dreaming about a room with no doors that kept getting smaller. And sometime in the hours between then and dawn, something happened, or started to happen, that I wouldn't understand until much later. If you're into real horror stories like this one, consider subscribing. This channel is just getting started and I'm uploading new stories every single day. It means more than you know. The first thing I noticed was the scratching. It started the next morning, Saturday, while I was making coffee. A faint, rhythmic sound coming from inside the wall behind the kitchen counter. Scritch, 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 steady as a heartbeat. I assumed it was mice. The building was old and I'd had mice before. I made a mental note to pick up traps and forgot about it. But the sound didn't stop. It followed me through the apartment. When I sat on the couch, it came from behind the living room wall. When I went to the bathroom, it was behind the mirror. When I lay in bed that night, it was directly beneath me, inside the floor, scratching with a patience that no mouse has ever had. I texted Marcus about it on Sunday. "Me, you ever get scratching sounds in your walls?" Marcus, "Like mice?" "Me, I guess. It's been constant since Friday night." Marcus, "Probably rats." "Welcome to Philly, LOL." Me, "Yeah, probably." I didn't text Danny. I wish I had. It was Jess who called me on Monday evening. She sounded off, not scared exactly, but unsettled. The way someone sounds when they've been alone too long with a thought they can't shake. "Have you talked to Danny?" she asked. "Not since Friday." "Why?" "He was supposed to meet me for lunch today. He didn't show. Didn't call. Didn't text. I went by his apartment and his car was there, but he didn't answer the door. Maybe he was sleeping." "At 2 in the afternoon? Danny sleeps weird. You know that." "I know. But I knocked for 10 minutes. I called him from the hallway. Nothing. I told her I'd try reaching him. I called. No answer. I texted. No response. I called again an hour later. Same thing. I wasn't worried yet. Not really. Danny went through phases where he'd withdraw for a few days, usually when he was working on something or when his depression was flaring up. We all knew about it and gave him space when he needed it. But Jess called me again on Wednesday and this time she was scared. "He answered the phone," she said. "Okay, good." "No. Listen." He answered the phone and he didn't say anything for about 10 seconds. I could hear him breathing. And then he said, "I can hear it in the walls," and hung up. A chill moved through me that had nothing to do with the temperature. Because I could still hear the scratching too. It hadn't stopped. 3 days and it hadn't stopped. It was constant now, a low persistent rasping that I'd almost gotten used to, the way you get used to tinnitus. Except every now and then it would change rhythm, speed up or slow down, and I'd remember that it was there and a cold thread of unease would tighten in my stomach. "I'm going over there," I said. I'll meet you. Danny's apartment was on the third floor of a converted Victorian in Fishtown. The hallway was narrow and dimly lit, and as Jess and I walked toward his door, I noticed the light above his apartment was out. Not flickering, out. The bulb was intact but dark. I knocked. Danny? It's me. Silence. Danny, Jess is here too. We just want to make sure you're okay. From the other side of the door, I heard something. Not a voice. Not footsteps. A sound like fingernails dragging slowly across the inside surface of the door. Starting at the top and moving down. All the way down. Then stopping. Jess grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight enough to hurt. Danny, I said again, softer this time. Open the door. The lock clicked. The door swung inward, but no one was standing behind it. The apartment was dark. All the blinds were closed and the overhead lights were off. The only illumination was a thin bar of gray light leaking through a gap in the bedroom curtains at the far end of the hall. Danny? Jess called from behind me. I'm in here. His voice came from the living room, off to the left. It sounded like Danny but muffled, like he was speaking through fabric, or like something was sitting on his chest. I stepped inside. The apartment smelled wrong, stale, humid, organic. Like wet soil. Like something had been growing in the dark. Danny was sitting on the couch. Just sitting there, hands on his knees, staring at the wall across from him. The TV was off. No music. No lights. He was wearing the same clothes he'd been wearing on Friday night. The same jeans, the same gray hoodie. His hair was unwashed, greasy, pushed back from his forehead in a way that made his face look longer than it was. Danny, what's going on? I asked. He didn't look at me. Close the door. Jess closed it behind us. The darkness thickened. Have you been sitting here since Friday? I asked. I've been listening. Listening to what? He was quiet for a long time. Then, it talks at night. What talks? Danny finally turned to look at me, and the bar of light from the bedroom caught his face at an angle that made the hollows under his eyes look like dark pits. He'd lost weight. In 5 days he'd visibly lost weight. His cheekbones were sharper. His lips were dry and cracked. The thing from the board, he said. It didn't stay in the board. I wanted to tell him he was being ridiculous. I wanted to say something rational and grounding, the way Marcus would have. But the scratching in my walls. The cold. The way the planchette had pointed at Danny's chest, right at the center of him like it was marking a target. I didn't say any of that. I just stood there. We need to get you out of here, Jess said. She was trying to be calm, but her voice was shaking. You need to eat something. You need sunlight. Come stay at my place. Danny shook his head. It doesn't matter where I go. Danny, you don't understand. He stood up and the movement was wrong. Too fluid. Like he'd gone from sitting to standing without engaging the muscles that transition requires. 1 second he was on the couch. The next he was upright, his arms loose at his sides, his head tilted slightly to the left. It's inside, he said. It's been inside since Friday. We got Danny out of the apartment. It took convincing, more than it should have. He didn't resist exactly, but he was passive in a way that felt like resistance. Like moving a mannequin. His limbs would go where you guided them, but they had no initiative of their own. His eyes tracked the environment, but they didn't react to it. When we stepped outside into the October sun, he didn't squint. He didn't adjust. He just walked. Jess drove. I sat in the back with Danny. He stared out the window the entire time, and twice I caught him mouthing something. His lips moving silently, rapidly, forming words I couldn't read. When I asked what he was saying, he stopped and looked at me as if he'd forgotten I was there. Nothing, he said. Just counting. Counting what? He didn't answer. We went to Jess's apartment. She made food, soup, sandwiches, simple stuff. Danny ate mechanically, chewing slowly, staring at the table. He drank 3 glasses of water without pausing between them. Afterward he seemed marginally better. More present. He answered questions with actual sentences. He even attempted a joke, something about Jess's cooking that almost landed. But underneath the normalcy something was wrong. Off by a degree that I couldn't quantify but could absolutely feel. It was the eye contact. Danny had always been an engaged listener. He'd look right at you when you talked, nodding, reacting. Now his gaze would settle on you and stay there a beat too long, unblinking, with an intensity that felt less like attention and more like study. Like whatever was behind his eyes was trying to learn how to look through them. Marcus came over that evening. We filled him in and he was characteristically dismissive. He's having an episode, Marcus said, pulling me aside in Jess's kitchen. He's done this before. Remember last winter? He didn't leave his apartment for a week. This is different. How? I don't know. The way he moves. The way he talks. He's not depressed, Marcus. I struggled for the word. Occupied. Marcus looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Occupied. Like there's something else in there. Listen to yourself. I know how it sounds. Do you? Because you sound like you actually believe a Ouija board, a piece of wood with letters on it, did something to him. I didn't have a response that wouldn't sound insane, so I dropped it. Danny slept on Jess's couch that night. I went home. The scratching was still there, waiting for me, patient and persistent. I lay in bed with my earbuds and playing music loud enough to drown it out, and eventually I slept. I woke at 3:47 a.m. to silence. The earbuds had fallen out, the music had stopped, and the scratching was gone. Complete silence. The kind of silence that feels thick, textured, like the air itself has solidified. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, and I knew, with a certainty that bypassed logic entirely, that I was not alone in the room. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My eyes strained against the dark, scanning the geometry of the room for something that didn't belong. Dresser. Closet door. Chair in the corner with yesterday's clothes draped over it. Window. All normal. All exactly where they should be. But in the corner. The far corner, where the walls met at an angle that the streetlight outside never quite reached. There was a density there. A shape that was darker than the dark around it. Not moving. Not breathing. Just standing. I told myself it was the clothes on the chair. That I was half asleep, that my brain was filling in shapes the way brains do. I told myself this while every nerve in my body screamed that I was looking at something that was looking back at me. Then the shape moved. Just barely. A tilt, like a head cocking to one side. I lunged for the bedside lamp. Light flooded the room. The corner was empty. But on the floor where the shape had been, there were marks. 3 long scratches in the hardwood, parallel, evenly spaced, each about a foot long. They hadn't been there before. I got down on my knees and ran my fingers over them. They were deep, deep enough that I could feel the rough splinters of displaced wood. Deep enough that whatever made them had pressed down with real force. I didn't sleep again that night. Over the next week, Danny deteriorated. It was gradual at first, the kind of changes you could explain away if you tried hard enough. He stopped eating much. He lost more weight. His sleep schedule inverted entirely. He'd be awake all night and comatose during the day, and when he slept in strange positions. Jess found him once standing in the corner of her living room, asleep on his feet, facing the wall. His eyes were open. She said his mouth was moving. Then the physical changes started. His skin took on a grayish pallor, like he hadn't been in sunlight for months, not days. His nails grew faster than they should have, or maybe he was just chewing them into jagged points. I noticed cuts on his forearms that he couldn't explain. Not self-harm cuts, not neat or deliberate. More like scratches. Deep ones. In groups of 3. He started knowing things he shouldn't know. Small things at first. He'd answer a question before you finished asking it. He'd reference conversations he hadn't been part of. One night at Jess's apartment, he looked at Marcus and said, "Your mother called today. She's worried about the money." Marcus went pale. He'd talked to his mom that morning about a loan payment he was behind on. He hadn't told any of us about it. "How did you know that?" Marcus asked. Danny blinked. "Know what?" "About my mom. About the money." Danny stared at him, and for a second his expression was genuinely confused, like he hadn't said anything at all. Then something shifted behind his eyes, that depth again, that impossible room, and he smiled. "Lucky guess," he said. No one laughed. It was after this that Marcus finally stopped being dismissive. I could see it in his face, the collapse of his rational framework, the reluctant acceptance that something was happening that he couldn't file away under psychology or coincidence. He pulled me aside again. "We need to get rid of the board," he said. "I've been saying that." "I know. I'm sorry. Where is it?" "Danny still has it. It's in his backpack at Jess's place." "Get it? Tonight. We'll burn it." I found the backpack in the corner of Jess's guest room, where Danny had been staying. The board was still wrapped in the pillowcase. When I picked it up, it was warm. Not just warm, hot. Like it had been sitting in direct sunlight for hours, except the room was dim and cool. The symbols along the edges seemed deeper than I remembered, more defined, as if they'd been recarved. The wood was darker. I carried it out of the apartment building and met Marcus in the alley behind the building. He'd brought lighter fluid and matches. We didn't discuss what we were doing or whether it would work. We just did it. Marcus doused the board. I lit the match. The board burned. But it burned wrong. The flames were low and blue, not orange, and they gave off almost no heat. The wood crackled and popped, and every pop sounded like a syllable, not a word but part of one, like a voice trying to form in the fire. The smoke was thick and black and smelled like nothing I've ever encountered before or since. Not wood smoke. Not chemical. Something sweeter and fouler at the same time, like overripe fruit left to rot in a sealed room. The board took a long time to burn. Much longer than wood should take. When it was finally ash, Marcus kicked the remains apart and poured water over them. "There," he said. "It's done." But we both knew it wasn't. You could feel it in the air, that charged, listening quality. The sense that something was watching. That it had watched the whole thing and was not concerned. Not even slightly. We went back inside. Danny was sitting in the living room in the dark, and when we walked in he said, "You burned it." Neither of us had told him what we were doing. "You burned it and it doesn't matter," Danny said. He was smiling, but his voice was flat. Detached. Like someone reading a line they don't believe. The board was just a door. You can burn a door but you can't unopen it. Jess found the priest. Father Thomas Moran from a parish in the northeast. He was in his 60s, heavy-set, with kind eyes and thick hands. He agreed to come see Danny, though I could tell from his voice on the phone that he thought we were exaggerating. He asked if Danny had a history of mental illness. I said he'd dealt with depression. Father Moran said he'd come by Saturday afternoon. In the meantime, things escalated. The scratching in my apartment had returned, louder now, more aggressive. It wasn't just in the walls anymore. It was on the walls. Visible marks appearing overnight, those same 3 parallel lines, scored into the plaster above my bed, behind the bathroom mirror, on the inside of the closet door. I kept my lights on all night. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom. I slept on the couch with the TV on, the volume just loud enough to cover the sound, and even then I'd wake at odd hours to the feeling of breath on my neck, warm and steady, from a mouth that wasn't there. One night I woke at 2 a.m. to a sound that wasn't scratching. It was tapping. A slow, deliberate tap-tap-tap on the window beside the couch. I lay there, rigid, reminding myself that I lived on the 4th floor. 4 stories up. No fire escape on that side of the building. Nothing outside that window but air and the brick wall of the building next door. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't look. I couldn't. I lay with my eyes shut so tight my cheekbones ached, and I counted the taps. They came in groups of 3, always 3, with a pause between each set. Tap, tap, tap. Silence. Tap, tap, tap. Silence. This went on for what felt like an hour but was probably 10 minutes. Then it stopped. When daylight came, I checked the window. On the outside of the glass, the outside 4 floors up, there were 3 smudge marks. Long, vertical, streaked downward, like someone had pressed their fingers against the pane and dragged them slowly toward the sill. I stared at those marks for a long time, and then I closed the blinds and didn't open them again. At work, I couldn't focus. I was a data analyst for a logistics company, a job that required concentration which I no longer had. My screen blurred. Columns of numbers rearranged themselves in my peripheral vision. I kept catching movement in the reflection of my monitor, shapes passing behind me in an office that was empty because I worked late to avoid going home. My supervisor asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I was not fine. I was very far from fine. At Jess's apartment, the phenomena were worse. Doors opened and closed on their own. Not slamming, that would have been almost comforting in its drama. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if someone invisible was walking through them at a leisurely pace. Glasses in the kitchen cabinet cracked. Not shattered, cracked. Hairline fractures that spiderwebbed across the surface overnight, as if the glass was aging decades and hours. The bathroom mirror developed a fog that wouldn't wipe away, a patch of condensation right at eye level that returned no matter how many times Jess cleaned it. She told me later that one morning she looked at the fog patch and saw letters forming in it, backward, as if written from the other side. She wiped them away before she could read them. She didn't want to know what they said. The smell came and went, that wet earth smell, rich and dark, the smell of deep ground, of places where roots push through clay and things decompose into the soil. It would hit suddenly with no warning and no source, and it would linger for exactly 3 minutes. Jess timed it. 3 minutes, every time. Then gone, replaced by the normal smell of her apartment, coffee and laundry detergent, and the faint sweetness of the candles she burned to try to cover the other smell. The cold was constant now. Not everywhere. It moved. It pooled in certain rooms at certain times, as if something was drifting through the apartment and the temperature dropped wherever it passed. Jess bought a cheap thermometer and left it on the kitchen counter. One morning she found the digital display flickering between 72 degrees Fahrenheit and 34 degrees Fahrenheit, alternating every few seconds, as if two realities were fighting for dominance in the same space. And Danny. Danny sat in the middle of it all, shrinking into himself, his eyes growing larger in his thinning face, his silence expanding to fill whatever room he was in. He'd stopped talking almost entirely. When he did speak, it was in fragments, non sequiturs, things that sounded like the tail end of a conversation he was having with someone we couldn't see. "It's always been here," he said once to no one. "You just didn't know how to look," he said another time, staring at a blank wall. And once, in the dead of a night when I was staying over at Jess's because I couldn't stand my own apartment anymore, I passed the guest room on my way to the bathroom and heard Danny whispering. Rapid, relentless whispering like a faucet left running. I pressed my ear to the door. The words weren't English. They weren't any language I recognized. But they had structure, patterns, repetitions, a cadence that implied meaning. And underneath Danny's voice, so faint I might have imagined it, there was another voice. Lower. Slower. Speaking the same words a half-second behind, like an echo that had gotten ahead of the sound. I went back to the couch and didn't sleep. Father Moran came on Saturday. He was patient and kind the way good priests are. He sat with Danny in the living room while the rest of us waited in the kitchen. Through the closed door, I could hear the low murmur of their conversation. Father Moran's measured, pastoral tones and Danny's near silence. After about 30 minutes, Father Moran asked Danny if he could pray with him. Danny said yes. I heard the priest begin, the Our Father, familiar and comforting. He got halfway through. Then the lights went out. All of them. The overhead fixtures, the lamps, Jess's phone screen. Everything. The apartment plunged into absolute darkness, the kind that feels like being buried. I heard Jess gasp. Marcus swore. From the living room, Father Moran's voice continued, steady, brave, pushing through the prayer. Then Danny spoke. It wasn't Danny's voice. It was deeper, much deeper, and it came from a place in his chest that human vocal cords don't reach. It was like two voices speaking simultaneously, Danny's and something underneath, something that sounded like it was talking through a mouthful of dirt. It said Father Moran's first name. Not Father. Not Thomas. His birth name. The name his mother called him as a child. Tommy. The prayer stopped. Tommy, 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 Danny's voice, the other voice said sing-song mocking. Your mother screamed that name when she died. Do you remember? How she screamed from the hospital bed. How you weren't there. How you were at the bar instead, Tommy? How you were drunk. Silence. Perfect, absolute silence. Then Father Moran said very quietly, I rebuke you in the name of. Name? The voice became a roar, a sound so loud and so deep that I felt it in my teeth, in my bones, in the soles of my feet. The walls shook. The dishes in the kitchen cabinet rattled. Jess screamed. I have been named in languages your species hadn't invented yet. Do not speak to me of names. The lights came back on. Danny was standing in the center of the living room. His feet were bare and his toes were curled against the hardwood floor so tightly that the nails were leaving marks. His hands were at his sides, fingers splayed, and his head was tilted backward at an angle that made his throat a long white line. His eyes were open, but they weren't looking at the ceiling. They were looking at nothing. They were empty, not closed, not rolled back, just empty like windows in an abandoned building. Father Moran was pressed against the far wall. His hands were shaking. His face was the color of wet paper. Danny's head tipped forward, slowly, vertebra by vertebra, until he was looking directly at the priest. And he smiled. A smile I'll never forget. A smile that used Danny's mouth but didn't belong to Danny. It was too wide, too knowing, too old. Go home, Tommy, the voice said. Softer now. Almost tender. This one belongs to me. Father Moran left. He didn't perform a rite. He didn't offer prayers or holy water or any of the things I'd half expected. He walked out of the apartment on unsteady legs, and when I followed him into the hallway, he turned to me with eyes that had seen something he could not process, and he said, I can't help him. What's in your friend? I've never encountered anything like it. It's not a haunting. It's not a standard possession. He stopped, swallowed. It feels ancient. It feels patient. Like it's been waiting for a long time. Waiting for what? Father Moran looked at me, and the helplessness in his expression was more frightening than anything that had happened in the living room. I don't know, he said, but I think it found what it was looking for. He left. I never heard from him again. I looked up the parish a few weeks later. Father Moran had taken a leave of absence. The secretary didn't know when he'd be back. Things moved fast after that. Jess couldn't stay in the apartment with Danny anymore. She didn't say it outright, the guilt wouldn't let her, but I could see it in the way she flinched when he entered her room, the way her eyes tracked him like he was an animal she wasn't sure was tame. She started sleeping at a friend's place, then at her parents'. Marcus and I took shifts staying with Danny, though staying with was a generous description. We sat in separate rooms and tried to pretend we weren't afraid. Danny's body continued to change. His joints made sounds when he moved, clicks and pops that were too loud, too deliberate, like his skeleton was rearranging itself. His spine seemed longer. His fingers seemed thinner. One morning I woke up to find him standing over me, looking down, and his face was inches from mine. His breath smelled like soil. Like the earth after rain. Like a fresh grave. "It wants me to show you something," he whispered. I scrambled backward off the couch. "Danny, sit down. It's beautiful where it comes from. It's dark and warm and it goes on forever. There's no floor and no ceiling and no walls, just space, just breathing space, and it's never empty, it's always full, there's always something moving in the dark." "Danny, stop." He stopped. He looked at me with an expression of profound sadness. Danny's expression, the real Danny, surfacing for just a moment through whatever was inside him. "I can't make it stop," he said, and his voice broke. I can hear it all the time now. It's not whispering anymore. It's talking. Full sentences. It tells me things about people, things no one should know. It tells me things about you. I don't want to hear them. It tells me about the dark, about what lives there. It says the dark isn't empty. It says it's full. It says we got it backwards. The light is the aberration. The dark is what's real and we're the things that don't belong. His eyes were wet. Danny was still in there, somewhere, fighting against the tide of whatever was flooding through him. And losing. "Help me," he said. 911 call transcript, October 31st, 11:47 p.m. Dispatcher. 911, what is your emergency? Caller. Marcus, yeah, I need someone to come to 2341 East Cumberland Street, apartment 3B. My friend, something is wrong with my friend. Dispatcher. Okay, what's happening with your friend? Caller, long pause, I don't know how to explain this. Dispatcher. Is your friend conscious? Caller, he's conscious. Yes, he's conscious, but he's not. Sound of something heavy falling in background. Oh God. Dispatcher. Sir? What was that sound? Caller, he's on the ceiling. Dispatcher, I'm sorry? Caller, he's on the... Caller's breathing becomes rapid, shallow. Listen, I know how this sounds. I know. But I'm looking at him right now and he's on the ceiling. His back is against the ceiling and he's crawling. He's crawling on the ceiling. Dispatcher. Sir, have you or your friend taken any substances tonight? Caller, no. No, listen to me please. This is not drugs. This is not unintelligible. He's been like this for weeks. It's been getting worse and we didn't know what to. Sound of glass breaking. Danny? Danny, please. Dispatcher. Sir, I'm sending a unit to your location. Stay on the line with me. Is your friend violent? Caller, he's not my friend. Pause. I mean he is, but what's doing this isn't him. What's looking at me right now isn't him. It has his face, but the way it's... Caller's voice drops to whisper. It's smiling at me. It's upside down on the ceiling and it's smiling at me and its mouth is open too wide. It's open wider than a mouth should. Unidentified sound. A low, sustained vocalization, not consistent with human speech. Duration, approximately 8 seconds. Dispatcher, what? Sir, what is that sound? Sir? Caller, whispered, it's talking. Dispatcher, what is it saying? Caller, it's not in English. I don't know what it's... Sharp intake of breath. Oh no. No. Dispatcher, sir? Sir, are you there? What's happening? Caller, it's coming down. It's coming off the ceiling. The way it's moving, it's not... Bones don't bend that way. Bones don't... Sound of caller dropping phone. Muffled sounds. Movement, heavy breathing, a door slamming. The low vocalization continues, closer to the phone now. Underneath it, another voice, higher, thinner, desperate. Danny? Help me. The phrase repeats without pause for breath for approximately 45 seconds, overlapping with the deeper vocalization, creating a layered sound that, in the recording, caused the responding officer to pull his vehicle over for several minutes before continuing to the scene. Dispatcher, I have officers en route. Stay on the line. Hello. Is anyone there? Silence. 30 seconds of silence. Caller, Marcus, barely audible, speaking from what sounds like a different room farther from the phone. It's standing at the door. It's just standing there. It's watching me through the crack. I can see its eye. But it's not Danny's eye. It's not anyone's eye. Call disconnects. The police arrived 12 minutes after the call ended. They found Marcus in the bathroom, curled in the bathtub, unresponsive. His eyes were open, but he wasn't seeing anything in that bathroom. Whatever he was looking at existed somewhere else entirely, somewhere behind the surface of things, and it had paralyzed him. He didn't speak for 3 days. When he finally did, the only thing he said was, "the eye," and he didn't elaborate. The nurses said he screamed once in the middle of the second night, a single sharp scream that woke the entire ward, and then went silent again. When they checked on him, he was sitting upright in bed, staring at the corner of the room, his lips moving without sound. They found Danny in the living room. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, calm, composed, almost peaceful. He was wearing a faint smile, the kind of smile you see on statues in museums, serene and ancient and utterly without warmth. When the officers asked if he was all right, he stood up, normally no clicking bones, no impossible joints, and said he was fine. He said his friend had had a panic attack. He said it was a misunderstanding. His voice was Danny's voice, but it was too smooth, too controlled, like someone who had spent a long time practicing how to sound like a person. The officers noted in their report that the apartment showed signs of disturbance. Overturned furniture, broken glass, cracks in the ceiling plaster that weren't consistent with normal settling. They also noted that the temperature in the apartment was approximately 38 degrees Fahrenheit, despite the thermostat being set to 72. One officer reported feeling a persistent sensation of being watched, though he attributed this to the late hour and the nature of the call. His partner, in a separate statement, mentioned that the shadows in the apartment didn't behave correctly, that they seemed to shift and pool independently of the light sources. This detail was not included in the final report. Danny was evaluated by paramedics and released. Marcus was taken to the hospital for observation. Jess and I met at the hospital waiting room, and we sat there until dawn, not talking, not sleeping, just sitting in the fluorescent silence and understanding that we were past the point where anything we did would make a difference. The waiting room was empty except for us. The vending machine hummed in the corner. A TV mounted on the wall played the local news on mute, silent images of traffic and weather and politicians shaking hands. Normal things. The world going on as if nothing had changed. As if something ancient and hungry hadn't just crawled through a crack in reality and taken up residence in a person we loved. I remember looking at Jess's face in that fluorescent light and seeing how much she'd aged in 2 weeks. Lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. A tightness in her jaw that was becoming permanent. She was 26 years old and she looked like she was carrying a decade she couldn't put down. "What do we do?" she asked. I didn't have an answer. I don't think she expected one. The next part is the hardest to tell. Danny disappeared on November 4th. Just vanished like smoke in a ventilation shaft. His apartment was empty, not just vacant, but empty. No furniture, no belongings, no sign that anyone had ever lived there. The walls were bare. The closets were bare. Even the nail holes where he'd hung pictures had been filled in and painted over, as if the apartment was resetting itself, erasing the evidence of his existence. The landlord said Danny had moved out weeks ago, which wasn't true. We'd been there 5 days earlier. When I pressed him, he got confused, shuffled through his paperwork, and couldn't find a lease agreement with Danny's name on it. There was no record of him in the building's files. The mailbox for apartment 3B was empty and unlabeled. His phone was disconnected. His social media accounts were deleted, not deactivated, deleted as if they'd never existed. His employer said he'd stopped showing up to work in mid-October and hadn't responded to their calls. When I asked his co-workers about him, they remembered him but vaguely, the way you remember someone from a dream. "Danny? Yeah, quiet guy. Sat by the window, right? When did he leave?" No one had noticed him stop coming. No one had thought it was strange. It was like Danny had been erased, not just from his apartment but from the infrastructure of his own life, systematically, quietly, the way you'd clean up evidence. Or the way a predator buries the remains of a meal. We filed a missing persons report. The police took the report and told us they'd look into it. I could tell from the officer's face that it was going into a pile and staying there. People go missing every day. People who aren't taken by something that crawled through a piece of antique wood on a rainy Friday night. They just leave. They walk away from their lives and start over somewhere else. That was the story the officer was telling himself, and I couldn't blame him. It was a better story than ours. I went to Danny's grandmother's house after he disappeared. She'd passed away the previous spring. That's when Danny had cleaned out the attic and found the board. The house was being prepared for sale, furniture covered in sheets, rooms smelling of dust and lemon polish. I let myself in with the key Danny had given me months before and went up to the attic. I don't know what I was looking for. Evidence maybe. Context. Some explanation for why a devout Catholic woman had a Ouija board hidden beneath her church linens. The trunk was still there. I opened it and sifted through the contents. Prayer books, rosaries, folded altar cloths, a Bible with passages underlined in red ink. At the very bottom, underneath everything, there was an envelope. Inside were 3 pages of handwriting, small and tight, in a language I didn't recognize. The same angular script that had been carved into the edges of the board. And at the bottom of the last page, in English, in what I assume was the grandmother's hand, a single sentence. Do not open the door. It does not close. I took the pages. I still have them. I've shown them to 2 linguistics professors, a graduate student who studies dead languages, and a priest at a different parish. None of them could identify the script. One of the professors said it looked like it might be Proto-Semitic, but fragments of it didn't match any known variant. The priest looked at the pages, crossed himself, and asked me to leave. Marcus wouldn't talk about that night. Ever. He moved out of his row house in Kensington and rented a studio apartment on the other side of the city, somewhere bright and new with thin walls and no basement. He stopped answering my calls after a few weeks. The last time we spoke, he said something that stayed with me. I saw something through that door crack, he said. Something behind Danny's face. It was looking at me and it knew me. Not the way a person knows you. The way a predator knows prey, completely, totally, without interest in anything besides what you are. And what I was, to it, was nothing. I was absolutely nothing. He paused and I could hear him breathing, shallow, unsteady, the breathing of someone who's been running from something they can't outrun. The worst part, he said, wasn't the fear. The worst part was that for a second, just a second, I understood it. I could feel what it felt. And it was happy. Not the way we're happy. Happy the way a fire is happy when it finds dry wood. Happy because it was doing what it was made to do. He hung up after that. I haven't spoken to him since. I drove past his new apartment once, a few months later. Every window was covered in aluminum foil. Every single one. Jess is the only one I still talk to. She's moved twice since October. First to her parents' house in the suburbs, then to a new apartment across town, smaller and cheaper but with good locks and neighbors on every side. She goes to therapy twice a week now. She's on medication for the anxiety and the insomnia. She sleeps with every light on the way I do because we both know what waits in the dark. She told me once that she still hears the whispering. Late at night, when the world is quiet and the medication is wearing off and the lights are buzzing overhead, she hears it, faint, rhythmic, in a language that doesn't exist. She said it sounds like it's getting closer. Not louder. Closer. Like whatever is speaking is covering ground, moving through some space that runs parallel to ours, inching toward a destination it has been approaching for a very long time. I hear it too. There's one more thing I need to tell you and then I'm done. 3 weeks ago I came home from work. It was a Tuesday. Overcast. Nothing unusual about the day. Nothing unusual about the commute or the walk from the parking lot to the building or the elevator ride to the 4th floor. I unlocked my door, walked inside, put my bag on the counter. And I smelled it. Wet soil. That rich, dark, unmistakable scent. Like a grave after rain. I stood very still. The apartment was silent. No scratching, no tapping, no whispering. Just the smell, thick and heavy, coating the inside of my nostrils, settling on my tongue. I could taste it. Mineral. Organic. I searched the apartment room by room, turning on every light as I went, checking behind doors and inside closets and under the bed. Nothing. No one. Windows locked. Door locked. Everything in its place. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Coffee mug in the sink, laptop on the desk, shoes by the door. Everything except one thing. On my bed, neatly, precisely, in the exact center of my pillow, placed there with a care that was almost ceremonial, there was a piece of wood. Small, about the size of a playing card. Dark, almost black. With symbols carved into it. Symbols I recognized. Symbols I'd seen on the edges of a board that I'd watched burn to ash in an alley behind an apartment building on a night in October. I picked it up. It was warm. Not hot the way the board had been. Warm the way skin is warm. The way a living thing is warm. And on the back, scratched into the wood in handwriting I recognized, Danny's handwriting, that distinctive left-handed scrawl with the oversized capitals, were 3 words. I found you. I stood there holding that piece of wood for a long time. I don't know how long. The light changed in the room, the overcast sky outside dimming toward evening, and I just stood there, feeling the warmth of it against my palm, reading those 3 words over and over until they stopped being words and became something else. A promise, a threat, an announcement. I put the piece of wood in a box. The box is in my closet. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if there's anything to do. Part of me wants to burn it the way we burned the board. Part of me is afraid of what would happen if I did. The board burned wrong. It burned blue. It screamed. What would this piece do? The scratching has started again. It's in the walls, in the floor, in the ceiling. It's everywhere, constant, surrounding me like a pulse. It's patient. It's persistent. It has the steady, unhurried rhythm of something that knows exactly where I am and is in absolutely no rush. I check the locks every night. I check the windows. I check every shadow in every corner of every room. I stand in each doorway and scan the space before I enter it, the way you check a room for an intruder, except the intruder I'm looking for doesn't have a body, doesn't need a door, doesn't cast a shadow because it is the shadow. But here's what I've learned, and this is the thing I need you to understand, the reason I'm telling you all of this. You can't lock out something that's already inside. You can't watch for something that's standing behind your eyes. You can't run from something that lives in the same skin you do. Danny tried to tell us. He sat in that dark apartment, in that silence that wasn't really silence, and he tried to explain what was happening to him. And we pulled him out of there and fed him soup and took him to a priest and burned his board, and none of it mattered. Because the door was already open. Because the thing that came through it wasn't bound to wood or flame or language or any of the structures we use to make sense of the world. It was older than all of that. It existed before boards and before language and before the concept of doors. It came from a place where none of those things have meaning. I sleep with the lights on now. All of them. Every lamp, every overhead fixture, the bathroom light, the stove light, the little LED strip I bought and stuck along the baseboard in the hallway. The electric bill is astronomical and I don't care. Darkness is a luxury I can't afford. Darkness is an invitation. Because the dark isn't empty. Danny told me that and I didn't listen. He looked at me with those eyes, those deep, impossible eyes that had seen something behind the surface of everything, and he told me the truth. And I nodded and made concerned noises and thought about how I was going to get him help. He wasn't the one who needed help. The dark is full. It's always been full. We just can't see what's in it, and that blindness is the only thing that's kept us sane. The only thing that's kept us from understanding what we share this world with. What walks beside us in every shadow, what breathes in every silence, what watches from every corner that the light can't reach. And lately, just in the last few days, I've started hearing something new. Not the scratching. Not the whispering. A voice. Clear, calm, speaking from just over my right shoulder, from a mouth I can feel but can't see. The breath is warm on my neck. It smells like soil. It's counting. Slowly. Steadily. In a language that shouldn't exist but that I'm beginning to understand. It's counting down. And I don't know what happens when it reaches 0. But sometimes, late at night, when the counting gets low and the lights flicker and the scratching in the walls reaches a crescendo and then falls suddenly horribly silent. Sometimes, in those moments, I catch my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop. And the reflection is looking at me. And its mouth is moving. And it's smiling. And I think I know whose smile it is. Silence.